Success is chased on a day to day basis as if it's some sort of cure. As if once we get that degree, once we get that job title, once we get that number in our bank account, or any of these superficial things, that void within us will start to fill up. That hole within you will start to feel okay. However, success, it doesn't fill a void. Instead, all success does is really distract you from it. You cannot fix internal emptiness with external success. And yet, so many people try every single day. We grow up hearing that, achievement should be the answer to everything. That being productive, being impressive, being, desirable, being someone will solve your restlessness. So every single day you hustle, you grow, and you try and force yourself to work. You start to overachieve, you start to prove yourself to everyone, you start to seek that validation. However, somewhere along the way, somewhere throughout that path of overachievement, the hollow feeling within you stays. Even worse, it can grow. Sorry, I messed up my words a little bit there. However, the thing to understand is that success, in a way that we define it, isn't inherently meaningful. Instead, it's neutral. It's sort of a tool. It's something that can, propel you towards real internal success, but it's not a purpose. And when it's used as a replacement for healing or for self-awareness or for connectivity to actual reality, it will fail you every single time. It's guaranteed to fail because, as I said before, you cannot use external success to solve those internal problems of yours. Think about it and relate it to real life. How many wildly successful people, like crazy, rich, fucking stupidly successful people, are really depressed? Like they have voids within them, they're miserable. How many people will reach the top of the mountain only to feel more lost than they've ever been, to feel more lost than they were at the bottom? That can't simply be a coincidence. It can't happen to everyone and it still be a coincidence. Instead, that is what happens when your external life, it evolves faster than the internal one. So that's basically it. Imagine you're running from a sense of worthlessness and you begin to chase approval, you begin to chase admiration, you begin to chase prestige and validation. And it may work for a while. However, the applause is never going to be loud enough to drown out the self-doubt. The claps will begin to fade, the applause will start to close, the curtains will start to shut on you, and the world will move on from you. And then all you have is that same emptiness that you felt from the start, because that success has left you. Like I said, the curtains have closed, but that emptiness was never filled. So all you're left with is the same emptiness. However, now you're exhausted, you're confused, and you've wasted all your energy simply trying to grow successful with a false path. Because you may tell yourself these things, you might be very confused, you might tell yourself, I did everything right, why am I still, why does everything feel wrong, why am I still a failure? That is the trap that external success wants you to believe is the solution to everything. That the illusion within success is a stand-in for self-worth. However, real worth doesn't come from being valuable to other people. Instead, it comes from being at peace with yourself. It comes from finding value within your own life, just as Albert Camus tells you to do. Find a meaning within everything that you do, not external success, which is a seek for validation. Philosopher Alan Watts said, trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. You cannot become whole by stacking accomplishments. Instead, you become whole by understanding your own patterns, your own stories, understanding yourself, your stabs, your wounds, all these things, and the work that comes from that success, the work that you do, the internal, the slow, the quiet kind, that is the real work. And that's the kind of work that doesn't come with a trophy. So it's less, disingenuous for people to try and do it. Most people will choose to avoid that kind of work because, like I said, it doesn't come with a trophy. It's quiet. Other people won't acknowledge you for it. It's not, palatable to share to other people. You can't post it on your Instagram as some sort of fucking work, hustle, success bullshit. Like I said, it is quiet. However, that kind of work is the true kind of work. The other kind of work is pretty lazy, it's really shallow. It's the kind of work you do on the surface when you want to show somebody that you're working. However, understand that if you do the real kind of work, the quiet work, it will get lonely. You won't get any likes. You won't get any acknowledgement. You won't get any praise. It won't get celebrated at all. No one will cheer when you set boundaries with your trauma because, they don't understand the path that you're going down. It doesn't make it less important. The loneliness is simply an indication that you are going on a different path than the other people. I'd like to say the other sheep, but, if someone's still chasing success, they like to chase success. Let them. However, you are going on a different path. That is why you feel so lonely. Do not feel distrayed. You're on the right path as long as it, fits resolute within yourself. Success is very romanticized because it's, like I said, it's far more palatable than healing is. Winning is so much more easy than facing dissatisfaction. It's so much easier to be admired than it is to admit that you're scared or that you don't know who you are without sharing your grind to everyone else, without sharing the hustle. However, if your entire identity is built based on performance, what happens when you stop performing? What happens when, you stop putting up an act, you stop showing everyone the shallow work that you do, and it hits you and you realize that you have to do some real work for once in your life now? Where's that external validation going to go? You can never tell. That's why you should move on from doing these kinds of these follower activities. That's why you should get away from the generalized path of following a stereotypical plan. And I'm not saying that plan doesn't work for anyone, because if you establish that plan works for you, go ahead and do it. However, a lot of people will only follow that plan because it's already set for them. They won't choose their own plan because it's too hard and they're too lazy and they want to act like they're doing work, but in reality they're not. Do 2 hours of work here, an hour of work here, the rest they take a break. That's all bullshit. Seek your own plan and follow your own plan. If you find that your own plan is very generalized and it follows a standardized path, I'd recommend you rethink it. However, if you rethink it, if you find it from the start and you find that, it follows that path, then maybe it is for you. Maybe the generalized path is for you. And if it is, go ahead and do the work. However, there's a moment. And if you've been through this moment, if you've been through this like part of your life, you will know it. And it's when success starts to feel heavy on your shoulders. It's when the things that you used to crave don't satisfy you anymore. It's when failure is desirable. It's when failure becomes something that isn't failure anymore. It's not failure. It's simply a wake-up call. It's your inner self knocking within you and telling you to let them out. It's asking them to be seen, not as a brand, but instead, you. I kind of messed that up because it's heavy. You don't want to be seen as a title. You don't want to be seen as an idea. Instead, you want to be seen just as yourself. And that idea itself is pretty terrifying, because if you've spent your whole life being the performer, being the achiever, being the jester, the one who fixes everything for everyone else, then stopping that may even feel like death. It may feel like dying, like even killing yourself metaphorically. And in many ways, it is a death, but it's a death that you need to achieve. It's a death of your old self to allow your new self to rebirth and for your new self to grow. It's basically, a killing of your persona and the waking up of you. It's a death of the illusion of that external validation and understanding that getting rid of that, persona, that external validation equals inner peace. However, the thing about death, metaphorical or not, it is scary. However, it also makes space for rebirth, for something more honest, for something more rooted. When you stop trying to be impressive and start trying to actually be real, everything shifts. When you stop explaining everything to everyone else and trying to become the best version that they want you to be, your definition of success becomes quieter. It becomes far more personal and it becomes rooted within you. It becomes about alignment as opposed to attention. You start asking different questions to yourself. You start asking, does this really feel like me? Am I really proud of how I show up every day? Am I really proud of how I represent myself to others? Do I like who I am when things are quiet? That is where the real peace genuinely lives. That's where that internal validation starts to exist, as opposed to that external success. The alignment between your inner and your outer self is where the peace exists. In the gap between where you pretend to be, who you are, and who you actually are, that gap starts to slowly close when you seek that internal validation. So understand that I'm not telling you to not pursue your goals. As I said before, if your goals align with the general public, go for it. However, I'm telling you that ambition isn't the enemy. I'm telling you that ambition is only healthy when it comes from a place of stability. So stop wasting your time seeking fake, falsified goals which don't actually exist. These superficial, materialistic items, things like, I want a brand new supercar or some bullshit like that, because that isn't going to help your internal validation. That isn't going to open a new world for you to understand who you truly are. Instead, understand that ambition should be in a place of stability. As I said, in a place of stability, not in a place of scarcity. I'm kind of yapping here, sorry. When that ambition is an expression of wholeness, instead of a desperate attempt to feel whole, that is when that internal validation starts to come to you. That's when that void within your heart starts to close. So if you genuinely feel empty, don't chase the next goal. Don't immediately run to the next superficial item that you think you can buy. Instead, sit with that emptiness for a minute. Sit with the void within you and ask it questions. Be curious about it, because there's only one way to understand it. What are you actually missing? What part of you hasn't been heard throughout your whole life? What part of you is still waiting to be loved? Because until you answer those questions, success will simply be an external distraction, a shiny object that keeps you distracted from the void that's growing within you. The world will sell you a fake idea of happiness. It will sell you a version of happiness that's loud and, it's impressive and it shows off to other people. But real fulfillment is a quiet yet growing thing within you. It's in the stillness, and it's in the honest conversations that you have with yourself. It's in the courage that it takes to walk away from what looks good but doesn't feel right. So as I said it, I'll say it one more time. I forgot what I said. Yeah. Internal validation doesn't come from external solutions. Instead, it comes from finding ambition within the things that truly sit and resolve within yourself. I don't know if resolve is a word, or at least the word I'm looking for there. But if you've watched this far into the video, you understand what I'm saying. Sorry for the yap at the end. And yeah, I'm grateful for all the growth this channel has seen. If you'd like, check out my push-up challenge that I'm doing for mental health, and hopefully you can donate something, maybe spread the word. But yeah, if you've watched all the way to the end, I'm assuming you're a supporter. So thank you very much.